All right, so what we are going to do, we are Team 9, and we are going to cover Chapter 4 out of the book. So what we decided to do with our presentation is kind of pick out the 5 most important things from the chapter. We're going to share those with you, and then that's kind of interwoven with all the material from the chapter as well. So these are the 5 key points that we're going to talk about. I'm going to talk about how to organize and research the presentation, and then also how to focus the information. Anna's going to tell you about how you're going to decide what you want to say in the presentation. And then afterward, Jason's going to talk to you about how to prepare for questions, and then also how you can potentially use technology within your presentation. Following that, of course, we're going to have our quiz, so we want y'all to be ready for that. So the first thing, exploring the possible content. So there's some different things that you can do. The first thing you want to do is you want to start with really a strategy of getting your information down. So the first thing you want to do is a data dump. So what that is really is just kind of getting all your ideas out, everything that you've got, all your data, getting it all down on a piece of paper. So once you do that, you can kind of see where you are. You can see what you've established, what you don't have established, and then you want to create a mind map. So what that is, you're going to take that information that you've just got in a whole spread, and you're going to try and organize it. So you're going to take the data from the data dump, you're going to move it into mind map, and you're going to create an organizational chart with it basically, and use it to help collect your ideas, help focus those ideas as well. Once you've done that, you can again see what information you do not have, and then you have to determine what other information you need. So you're going to collect further information, you're going to generate those ideas, of course, by determining what you need, and then using research as well. So there's various ways in which you can use research. The first thing we've got there is how to use Wikipedia responsibly. A lot of people think that you should never use Wikipedia for anything. We really feel that that's not necessarily the case. Wikipedia is a great resource to go to. You just don't want to source or cite Wikipedia. Find the articles that Wikipedia is sourcing and Wikipedia is citing, and then a lot of times those are very scholarly articles, very reputable articles, so you want to go to the root source. It's really just a compilation of data. And then, of course, we have scholarly articles on there as well. Being students at the university, we've got things like LexisNexis and other things like that. But again, you can use those from Wikipedia. And then just kind of reputable news sources, we want to touch on that a little bit. You don't want to be using from blogs or things like that, but from news sites. While there's always discrepancy between whether a certain news site is reputable, Fox News or CBS or whatever, those are all generally considered fairly reputable sites. While the data can be disputed. And then the last thing, after you gather all of that information, what you want to do is figure out what you still need more information for, and then you want to generate all of that content. So after you compile all of that, you've got your original data that you had from your data drop, and then you're collecting all your own information, and then you're creating your own information furthermore on that. The last thing you want to do once you get all of that is, again, kind of going back to that mind map, looking at what you've got, focusing and ordering that information. So the first thing that you want to do in order to focus that information is you want to draft your objective. What this really does is figures out, okay, what is our purpose for this presentation? Our purpose for you is to help you understand how to get the ideas of a presentation across. But then, of course, as we've mentioned, we've got that quiz at the end, and that's very important to all of us, as I can see from everybody's head down right now. So you want to draft that objective. What is the purpose of the presentation, and what do you want to accomplish? The next thing you want to do is nutshell the information. Keep it closed, keep it concise. Don't be going off on a bunch of tangents, because you're going to lose people. They're not going to understand what you're saying. Circle back around using research. I just talked a lot about different ways to use research. Use that research just as you would within a paper or anything else that you might do during a presentation. Circle back to that research and show why your ideas are backed up. And then order the content. Again, use the mind map that you originally started with, follow through everything, and then create a full kind of sheet, a full map of what you want to do during your presentation and how to accomplish your objective. So moving on to the next thing, we're going to talk about deciding what to say, and Anna's going to cover that for you.
And now that Tim has talked about how to gather, order, and focus the information, it's now time to talk about deciding what to say. Your opening is very crucial. You need to set the stage in order to really connect with the audience. You also need to grab their attention. You can do this by making a promise and what your presentation will deliver. You can describe a vivid image, and you can explain why the audience should care about your presentation. And it's always important to include a preview of the presentation, so explaining what your presentation will be about. We did this in our first slide. We said all the topics that we're going to cover, and we mentioned that there will be a quiz afterwards, and so you should really focus on our presentation. And you also need to include a summary, the same kind of summary, at the very end of your presentation when closing. And you really want to think about what your presentation wants to accomplish. This kind of maps back to what Tim said about drafting your objectives. They should really connect with that. And also it's important to develop a well-organized body. There are 3 types of examples to do in a TEL presentation, which is this type of presentation. It's topical, time-based, and contrast. The topical structure is broken down in topics. No surprise there. Like this presentation, we have 5 important topics we go over the chapter 4. Time-based structure, it is broken down into a sequence of events, first, later, last. Like our current events that we do, a lot of times we put it into a time-based structure. We say the history of what happened, then the current event, and then we kind of go on to the future actions or effects of that event. And then the contrast space is broken down to compare items that you're presenting over, and it's important, and it shows the differences between the items that you present over. This can be used if you do a presentation over social media. You can do Facebook, Twitter, etc. And it kind of shows you what each of them are used for and the differences between each medium. And I'm going to pass it to Jason to do questions and answers.
Okay. All right. So as you prepare your presentation, you should really start to think about the interactive moments at the end when the audience will be asking you questions. There are 2 ways to prepare for a Q&A, either by preparing to take questions through the entire presentation or by holding all questions until the end. Knowing which Q&A style to utilize will help you develop in your presentation. As questions arise, treat them as either compliments or valued interest from your audience members. You may think to yourself that the audience is truly interested in what it is you have to say, and they actually want to know more detailed information. By adopting this attitude, you will create the right tone for your Q&A. As you begin to rehearse, try to anticipate the questions that the audience may ask by practicing a few different responses. Ask a friend to help you by posing as an audience member to ask you questions related to your topic, as well as unexpected questions and negative comments. Try to record the rehearsal and then review the video to see how you respond and react. That way, in case you have to fine-tune your presentation style, you can. Now, to refine listening skills, listening expert Robert Bolton breaks listening skills into 3 clusters of behavior. The first skill is to look like a good listener by using nonverbal behaviors to show the audience that you are interested in their questions. You should always face the questioner and avoid distracting arm placements, such as resting your chin on your hand or crossing your arms. Always maintain eye contact with the questioner. That way you can observe their full face and pick up on any nonverbal cues. If appropriate, move to the side of a podium or in front of a table to close the distance between you and the audience. The second skill is to encourage audience participation. Ask open-ended questions that can't be answered with a simple yes or no. Instead, start your question with a phrase such as, what are your views on this topic? Or tell me what you think. After you ask the question, allow 10 to 15 seconds to allow the audience to think about their response. As the response is given, remain silent for the full duration of that response. By interrupting the audience member, not only will you be unable to hear the response fully, but you also send a negative message that you are uninterested and you're trying to rush them. and also as you listen, try to use little cues called minimal encouragers. By nodding your head or tilting it to one side, widening your eyes or saying, uh-huh, you will encourage the audience member to continue speaking. As long as these signals appear natural, you will communicate to your audience that you're genuinely interested in their question and comments. Now, the third listening skill is to paraphrase the question back to the audience. This skill involves more than just repeating the same question that someone just asked. Paraphrasing will translate the audience member's words into your own as a brief statement which captures the essence of what they just said. By paraphrasing the question, it allows everyone to stay engaged. It allows you to understand the question that was just asked. Now, as you present, audience members may be interacting in what is called the back channel. These interactions typically take place on social media websites such as Facebook or Twitter. Back channel interaction may also take place via email and on online chat rooms. Now, you'll want to consider the pros and cons of using such online back channels and decide whether or not you're comfortable enough to use them. If your audience will more than likely be online during your presentation and you are comfortable with the technology, consider using this to your advantage. For example, Twitter is amongst one of the most popular microblogging websites, and you can use it to promote your presentation by including a hashtag message on your welcoming slide and throughout the entire presentation. You may also want to create a Twitter-sized message, which is about 140 characters or less, and encourage your audience to share that before, during, and afterwards. Now, if you do plan on using technology with your presentation, make sure that you explain to your audience which technology you plan to use and how they can interact with it. Now, I'll pass it over to Anna once again, and she'll give you a recap on the 5 most interesting things to craft the content.
All right, in closing, remember how Tim talked about how to gather, order, and focus the information. And I mentioned what to include in your opening and closing statements and how you can structure your body. Jason told us how to listen and prepare for questions and answers, and how to use technology during your presentation. And now it is time for your clips. Number 1, blank blank is a technique that will help you collect, focus, and order ideas early in the planning stages. Number 2, list 3 ways in which you can get ready for questions. Number 3, according to the text, name at least 2 types of disturbers in the audience. Number 4, draft objectives and nutshell information are 2 ways to blank and blank information. When you blank the questions back to the audience, it allows everyone to stay engaged and you to make sure you understand.